Come unwrap some holiday magic this season in Denver, where the lights are brighter and the shopping is grander. The shows are more spectacular, the trees taller, the festivities merrier. So come for your holiday traditions or make some new ones with your friends and family in the Mile High City, where the season feels a whole lot more wonderful. Discover great hotels and more things to do at milehighholidays.com.
In today's economy, cash flow is tight, and families are held captive to high interest rate credit card debt. Churchill Mortgage can restructure your current mortgage and significantly reduce these problems. Get a free analysis and learn how to eliminate credit card interest rates, lower bills, and start taking control of your budget. Get started at churchillmortgage.com. This is a paid advertisement. NMLS ID 1591, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, Equal Housing Lender, 1749 Mallory Lane, Suite 100, Brentwood, Tennessee, 37027.
Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
Thank y'all for tuning in today. I have a powerhouse guest for you today. He is a father, a Marine, a husband, a servant leader, a business owner, entrepreneur, and a podcast host. He teaches from a place of vulnerability where he goes in depth on his struggles as a man dealing with his life for his fellow brothers. You know, I've listened to some of his podcasts via YouTube, and he will share that information to you a little later on, where I'm going to tell you it's a lot of information that's been given, and it's really valuable information that's going to help you move forward in life. One of the things that I believe that he covers is understanding how to flip the script, you know, when something has been given to you and you're like, hey, you know, how do I get out of this situation, right? And I think that he offers valuable information on how to flip that script, you know, so we'll talk about that a little bit today. His name is Alundus Havens. Thank you very much, man, for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Maurice. It's an honor, brother.
And that's good. That's good. So, you know, I hopefully I did pretty well for an intro for you today.
That was phenomenal.
That's good. That's good. That's good. You know, but as I stated, you know, I had listened to some of your podcasts and I looked at your bio and things like that. Just some of the challenges that you've had to overcome. So what would you suggest to someone on when to flip the script, or what should they look for to flip the script of whatever they felt like, whatever hand they've been dealt?
I think the first thing is radical honesty, which is the hardest, you know, because now looking back on it, you know, especially having mentors earlier on, you know, sometimes I'd give them the bird and I would say, you don't know what you're talking about, you know, and think we have everything figured out. So first it starts with figuring out how to be honest with yourself on the cards that you're dealt with, because that's the hardest part sometimes is we, you know, want to think optimistically, we want to think about whatever, but we're like, we don't want to be in that moment of understanding where we're at, whether if it's good, bad, ugly. So if you can be able to understand that, hey, you know, this is the situation, I am this way because of X, Y, and Z, or maybe that my parents tried the best they could, but they didn't break the cycle. So it's on to me. Then you're able to see from there, okay, you know, I can put work in these areas and I can start living my life in conjunction the way that I want to live every single day. And then all of a sudden, you know, you start stacking the wins, you start seeing that, oh, you know, you're doing the things that your ideal self, you know, that better man does every single day.
So can you give an idea of some of one challenge that you had to flip the script on? A little more specifically, that, you know, just in case someone is dealing with something very similar to that today.
Absolutely. So for me, I dealt with generational trauma, whether that was abuse, alcohol. Really, I was really taught how to be a player and how to be manipulative and how to do all these things in life, right? Because that's what my dad was taught by his uncles, and his dad wasn't in the picture. So he taught me things like always have, you know, multiple girls at a time, and never leave yourself vulnerable, don't open up, and suppress the emotions by drinking. And if you party and you're the life of the party, everybody's going to love you. So I followed in those footsteps. I became a Marine, and I had this chip on my shoulder where I was going to prove everybody wrong. And it led me further and further away from myself. But the worst part was I started repeating some of the bad mistakes. I cheated on my wife. I was going down past drinking a gallon of whiskey, and it wasn't leading me into the life that I wanted to live. And then it came to me, and it was like, man, now you have 2 little ones.
Right.
And it's like, you don't break this cycle. Your kids are going to have to do it. So for me, it was, getting a vision from God, and it was seeing my funeral, and it was like, thinking about, hey, when I die, what are they going to say? Are you this guy that didn't amount to anything in life? Are you this guy that, lied to everybody? And yes, you're the one that listens to everybody's problems, but you didn't guide them in the right direction, or you didn't go from that vulnerable place and saying, hey, man, I know exactly how it is, to where when you grow up, it's a certain way and you feel alone. So for me, it was that I wasn't doing all the things wrong because I wanted to. I was doing it because I was repeating the cycle, and I didn't know any better at that time. It's not an excuse to say that it's okay, but it's an excuse to say that, hey, I got work to do. So for me, it was getting clear with myself and just saying, hey, that's not the man that I want to be in this life. And if I'm going to do anything, it's going to be better in helping that fellow brother at the same time, because that's not what we do as men traditionally. We want to suppress the emotions. We don't want to talk about the things, so it leads us further away from what we want to be.
So one of the things you had mentioned, about the ability to speak to other individuals, right? So how have you been able to take what is perceived as a negative situation, and as you call it, being a player, for those of you who don't know, you can look it up, right? But, but from that perspective, how has something like that helped you in being an entrepreneur? You get what I mean? Because sometimes we look at these things as a negative trait or a negative habit, and we can turn it into that positive, characteristic that we have to move us forward. So how have you been able to utilize that skill, if you will, into being an entrepreneur?
Yes, sir. So the way that you can do that is just simply understanding what it is and then removing the negative from it. So for me, I noticed that within life, I started being an introvert and shutting down a lot of the times when it would come to talking to other people or getting vulnerable with my story, or just really helping out another man, right? What I started to do was understand that, hey, I'm good at talking to people. People feel comfortable around me. So that means as a business owner, as a man, and this is what I did, for me, it was starting the podcast about recalibrating your mindset. And that's where I say, challenge all the belief systems that you have, whether they serve you, they don't serve you, and then see if it aligns to your core values. So for me, it was seeing, okay, my core values is to be closer to God every day. It's to be disciplined. It's to be that man that I envision and respect ultimately. So if I can take discipline out of the undisciplined practices, kind of like I said, the being player, it allows me to just move that lever. So I took the negatives out of there, and I understood that, hey, I'm good at building relationships with people. I'm good at being vulnerable. I'm good at sharing my story and helping somebody else, whether they see it or not. They're going to be like, man, you went through a lot in your life, but it doesn't stop you. So from a business perspective, it helped me out even more, because then you can build that trust factor with people. And then they're like, man, you went through all these things, and they can just see you as a human being versus, seeing you as somebody who's coming out from a money perspective, or someone that's not going to follow their word. Like, man, I live this every single day, because I know if I don't live these practices every single day, that's where I can end up again. So it's something for me where constantly, I'm helping that. And it helps out in business, because continually I'm like, man, I have to be disciplined. I have to do things the right way, because you could easily get aligned to people who aren't doing things the right way if you're not vigilant of that.
So I think one of the key points that you're talking about also is consistency, right? So how do you develop those type of skills to become consistent in bettering yourself? So one of your questions that you have in your profile is, just something as simple as reading books and what resources are around you, things like that. So how important to you is consistency, to go from where you have been to where you are today?
I would say consistency is the number one thing. The reason why is it's so hard especially in today age, we have so much technology, we have so much influence around us,
Right, right.
and people, and it may not even be people being bad. It's just people that are stuck in their own ways for what works with them. And that's why they say things like, oh, this works for me. And you're like looking at it and you're like, man, this doesn't work for you. Because if it did, you wouldn't be doing the same things you're doing.
Right.
And you wouldn't be living that life. And you're not happy. Ultimately, you can see that. So
Right.
if you want to be consistent, it all goes back to, what you want that picture of a life to be, your actions to be, what it is. And that's why I say, like, think about that man you want to be and what they live their life as. Do they wake up early? Do they show up for their family? Do they continually work on the anger issues? Are they able to channel that and speak and be able to, talk to people and so forth? So if you're able to see the practices that you need to do to be to where you need to be, then it's something to where you can change that script and saying, I got to do these things. So like, I get to be able to do this. I get to be able to continually, try one more thing every single day.
Right.
And really, that's not going to happen until that pain feels so bad that makes you change.
So in that, let's go into your winner's paradigm, right? So one of the questions that I have is, what does it mean for that winner's paradigm?
So for the winner's paradigm, it just means that you will do anything with the moral right to win. The reason why I say that is there's so many ways you can win, and there's so many ways that aren't good. And I met individuals like that and seven-figure entrepreneurs. But at the end of the day, it's in your right moral compass. It's in your right of what winning looks like for you. So I talk about your definition of success, because a lot of people, it's different, right? They want the house that's secluded from society or whatever. Me, it's like, no, I do want the nice cars. I do want the bigger house. Why? Because I want to show it to my kids that, hey, you can do whatever you want in life. Because where I came from, it was always, you can never do that. You're never going to be this. You're never going to be this person. You're always going to be like your dad.
Yeah.
You're always going to be bad. So for me, I speak on that. And I'm like, hey, if that's exactly what you want, and you're coming from a place of giving and helping other people, then you absolutely can have every single thing you want in life. It just means that you have to work to have that energy. So when you get there, you don't fall back to those bad vices. You don't fall back to, that lack of character that you had in the past. And that's why it's continually building yourself up. So you understand, you have that gratitude, that gratefulness for exactly everything you're accomplishing.
So as I stated earlier about the book, so what books have you read over your time to build up your journey to where you are today?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say one, I was kind of all over the place, like we like to say, ADHD, even though we probably didn't get that diagnosed. So for me, it was reading The One Thing by Gary Keller, which really just talks about doing the one thing that's going to move that lever. So we talked about consistency, right? So that's what that book's about. Scheduling things in your schedule, for instance. So 1 hour time block, and you're like, I'm just going to study this time. I'm just going to go for a walk for this 1 hour. I'm going to, get outside and sit with my thoughts, because that's something we don't do. So for me, it was taking action by just doing the simple things. One thing, one workout a day. I'm going to go for a walk. I have a lot of injuries from when I was in the Marine Corps. So it was pushing my body and understanding that my body's never going to be the same. Talk is good, but I was putting limiting beliefs on myself. So One Thing by Gary Keller, How to Win Friends and Influence People, was something that I didn't really understand the first time. I read that book, and then I was like, man, there's so many different ways that we can be able to do it. But I would say the best book for me was 48 Laws of Power. Because I had some bosses in the Marine Corps. And it was funny because I read this book like 3 weeks before I got out, and I had one boss who was just manipulative, and she just wanted the power to make herself look good. And once I started just letting her be, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what I don't know, and everything, because I was my own boss at 19. So she came in the mix, and I was like, hey, boss, like, I can run the show. I can make you look good. All you need to do is show up, do what you got to do, go to your political meetings, basically, and then I'll run everything, and you can have an easy life. And she was like, nope, I'm going to micromanage, which is the opposite between my workflow. It makes me break down and start flipping out, because I hate when somebody's looking over me and telling me, because I'm a leader, and I can just do it for you, and I can show you the right way. So that book was powerful, because it just let me refrain and start understanding that, hey, people are going to show their colors and show who they are. So if we just give them the floor to do it, it changes.
So how do you suggest to someone to maximize on their influence on their job with individuals, with, whatever it might be? How would you suggest to someone to maximize their influence in any situation?
Ooh, another great question. Uh, First, you have to identify what your workflow and style is.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times, we have mentors, we have other people, and we try to do it their way. Just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, if we're speaking to somebody, we're trying to sell them on our ideas. Like,
Right.
if I try to go your way, Maurice's way, it may work. It may make sense to you, but then
Right.
to somebody else, they're going to be like, oh, this doesn't sound authentic. So,
Mm-hmm.
really, it's getting real with yourself so you understand the way that you're speaking, you're showing up for other people, and then conveying that message effectively by
Mm-hmm.
showing exactly, hey, this is how you can do it, and leading by that example.
Mm. It's interesting because I had a few conversations recently about, maximizing people's influence on the situation. And because you are, as you had stated earlier about being an introvert, some people don't know how to come out of that space of being an introvert and still exude their influence on the situation. So I think that one of the things that you had mentioned even early on in the conversation of being able to talk to people. Sometimes just as simple as just having a simple conversation, humanizing yourself or whatever the situation is. Sometimes it's very subtle things that make it seem as though that you are easy to speak to, that exudes your influence. So do you agree with something like that or disagree? What's your thoughts?
Yes and no.
I got you.
So for me, yes, yeah, you absolutely can be able to talk and be easy. The reason why I say no is because we're talking about introverts. It's
Right.
hard for us to do that.
It
Now, what I understood is, so initially, and that's why I say you got to get real with yourself and know who you are.
Right.
So for me, as a kid, it was suppressing it because I had one side where it was the making money household. You just do it. You don't complain. You just do it. It's don't be a bee mentality.
Right.
Show up, show out. The other side was conservative. My mom had a racist white stepdad, so he didn't like black people. So it was don't dress that way, don't talk this way. So really my identity wasn't being me. So I would kind of shift between the way I was. And then when I got older, I was like, why am I not clicking with people? Why is it not working? Well, that problem transitioned into alignment to where when I got older, it was simple mindset things. Just like they say, after the age of 25, a man's already developed, his way, his
Right.
foundational principles, and that's why it's hard for them to change a lot of the times. So for me, it was getting in conversations with people when I was in the military, and the military was the figure it the F out mentality. So it was extremely rough for me because I came back from deployment in Kuwait, and people were giving me complaints about their life, about whatever, and they're just coming to me with their issues. And I'm like, man, you need to suck it up. You need to get to work. And I'm telling them these things that I was told, right? And it was wrong. And that's where I was like, okay, I need to start learning how to talk to people differently. But it's not that I don't like people. It's not that I don't like to them. It's just we're on two different wavelengths. And for me, I was giving no as an answer, and I was given to suck it up and keep moving. So when I hear somebody who's coming from that place, it wasn't that I just think that they're stupid or I don't want to talk to them. It's that I get frustrated because I've been in that same place. So now I've worked on it so much to where I start laughing sometimes and people will get upset at me. Why are you laughing? I'm like, bro, I've been exactly there.
Right,
I've told my mentors to F off. They don't know what they're talking about. And then a year later, circle back. I'm like, hey, maybe you did know what you were talking about. Maybe that business advice about, making genuine relationships and just following up with the people I already know is going to work, and that's where, again, you have to challenge everything. So I love the way that you said that because, again, we got to know ourselves. And for me, I would use that I'm an introvert excuse and say that, I can't talk to anybody. I can't ask these questions, and really just came to, alignment and just seeing where they're at. And I can feel people's energy. So that was the biggest part, was like, you can feel someone's energy if they're hesitating, if they're really doing what they say they are, the actions that they're taking. If you just literally watch them, and if they're drinking soda, if they're drinking multiple things of coffee, if they're drinking water, you can assess like, hey, maybe they're getting work done, maybe they're not. So it was something for me where the more I paid attention, then it became more clear.
Nice. So listen, as I stated earlier, you give out a lot of information. And I really, unfortunately, our shows are only about 20, 25 minutes. So before we go, I would like for you to share your social media, where people could find you at Alpha Influence Media, whatever it is, anything you'd like to share with the people today.
Absolutely. So easiest way to find me is at Alundus_Havens for Instagram, Facebook, Alundus Havens. Best two mediums that can find me. I'm on YouTube as well if you just put Alundus Havens in. And then if you're a man who's looking to really reach into that higher calling, start a podcast and share your journey, and start telling other men about these things. Because a lot of times, we have the business, we have the life, and we still don't feel fulfilled because we're not sharing that information.
Right.
That's where I can help you as well. So you can just find me on social media, but that is my game, is helping other men just improve their lives. Because I know exactly how it is to start counting the wins and doing a little bit better, but you're like, I'm not doing better because I still have this knowledge and I'm not sharing it with people.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. So before I let you go, I ask this of every guest before they leave out is my would you rather question. And my question is, would you rather pick 3 doors or a fork in the road? Which one would you choose?
Oh, that's good. I would rather do the fork in the road. It's me. I'm stubborn. I like to learn the hard way. And, it's not always the best thing sometimes, but sometimes that's what we need. And now for my personality, it's if I have that fork in the road that's going to push me and make me evolve and change and hate myself in the moment and be like, man, I don't want to do this. It's going to make me even better. So I'm always that one that is going to take the harder thing. Even though I don't have to do that, I'm like, hey, I'm going to make it easier on myself and just play mind games with myself.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's funny because I've been asking this question for quite some time. And it's funny during the pandemic, if you will, most people wanted the 3 doors. They wanted more options. But most recently, they either want to go left or right. They don't want as many options. So it's just interesting to hear the consistency right now of just choosing the fork in the road.
It's the harder part, but it's the best part because then you're able to see it from a different lens after you get through it.
Right.
So you may not like it. You may not think it's fun. It's not what you want, but it's easier versus the options to where a lot of us can be indecisive. We just sit there and we're like thinking about the options, and then you have the regret of, I should have chose the other 2 options versus this option versus just being present in the moment and saying, well, I chose my option. It may not have been the best option, but it was an option that got me moving the needle forward.
Cool. Man, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for all the information that you have provided today. Again, everyone, he had given his social media. Of course, it'll be in the description below. And thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Maurice. It was an extreme honor, brother.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot. And be sure to continue to listen to That Will Never Work podcast. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?
Sometimes during Christmas, something magical happens.
Hey, Cricket customers. The Max with Ads plan is included with the Cricket $60 unlimited plan at no additional cost. And this holiday season, Max is the one to watch when you're feeling festive.
Son of a nutcracker!
Cozy up to all the holiday classics, like Elf, 8-Bit Christmas, and the Harry Potter 8-film collection. Just log in with your Cricket username and password to experience Max on all your favorite devices. Phone plan streams and standard definition. Programming subject to change. Fees, terms, and restrictions apply. See cricketwireless.com for details.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.